Florida sheriffs. We're very proud of the work that they do. We do have Bill Primel here, of course, Charlotte County Sheriff and the president of the association. We've got a lot of the Florida sheriffs that are standing behind us on the dais up there. And then, of course, we have our great Senator Jay Collins and our wonderful First Lady, my wife, Casey. So thank you all for being here. Some take it for granted that we're a law and order state. I think the folks that wear these uniforms, they've watched what's gone on in the rest of the country, really for the last maybe 10, 15 years, where law enforcement became a target. You had movements to attack the police, to defund law enforcement. You saw cities burning down with the BLM riots during the summer of 2020, and on it goes. And that has not been the experience in Florida. We say we're a law and order state, but we have backed that up with strong action to be a law and order state. When you did have those riots in the summer of 2020, I made it clear as governor we would not tolerate it. These sheriffs made it clear they would not tolerate it. You didn't see our cities burning down like you did in other parts of the country. We followed that up, though, with passing the strongest anti-rioting legislation anywhere in the country that said very simply, if you riot, if you loot, if you're attacking law enforcement, you will be held accountable in the state of Florida. If you do things like block traffic, we are not going to accept that. And so you had the pro-Hamas people last year. They thought that they would block traffic around our theme parks in Orlando. That took about 11 minutes before Florida Highway Patrol ejected them from the street. Tried the same thing down in South Florida, in Miami. Didn't last very long there. We're not tolerating the nonsense. We're not going to let the inmates run the asylum. So we're proud of that. That is putting your money where your mouth is by providing substantive laws that make us a law and order state, not just the rhetoric to say that we are supportive of law enforcement. We have also enacted a law enforcement bonus program for new recruits. And this is something that was, on our part, an opportunity, because we saw how some of these officers were being treated in San Francisco, in Seattle, New York City, Chicago. I mean, some of these budgets were being slashed. You had all kinds of terrible politicians that were using law enforcement for a scapegoat. And so we said, look, if you come to Florida and you're new to Florida, and not just people from other states, young people could also qualify for the bonuses, because we do think this is an honorable profession. You get a $5,000 signing bonus. So all these sheriffs have been able to use that bonus as they welcome in new recruits to their agencies. And we've seen that not just in sheriff's departments, but police departments and our state agencies. And that is on top of the bonuses we were doing. We did during COVID, we did $1,000 bonuses 3 years in a row for every sworn law enforcement officer in the state of Florida. And the thing about that was, look, it was nice. Obviously, we were in a period of inflation, thanks to what the federal government was doing. And so it helped on the margins to make ends meet, although $1,000 isn't what it used to be. That used to be more than it is now. But what people would say is, when they get the check, they'd say, it just shows that the state of Florida has my back, that they care about what we're doing and that they support the job. And I think that's one of the things I'm proud about in Florida, is from the governor's office down to the local level, our communities really genuinely support what law enforcement do. It's not just for show. They understand it's important, and they don't take for granted that we have a 50-year low in the crime rate. So we're proud of having done that. We've also done Florida Law Enforcement Academy Scholarship Program, covering tuition fees up to $1,000 of eligible expenses. We believe that this is a noble profession, and we want to be able to provide a pathway for folks who want to serve in this profession. We had, before we went universal on school choice, we did have for a time where, regardless of income, the children of law enforcement, sworn law enforcement, were able to get our scholarships. Now those scholarships, fortunately, are open to all, so it's not the kind of the special benefit anymore, and we're glad that we opened it up to all. But there was a time where, because you can have a sheriff's deputy and have a spouse that works, and you'd be priced out of getting a family empowerment scholarship, but it's not like you're living high on the hog. So we were happy to be able to do that. And we're also proud of the work that we're doing with the Florida sheriffs, as well as our other law enforcement, on immigration enforcement. All 67 Florida sheriffs have enforcement. There is no other state in the country that has done what Florida's done and has leaned in on this issue as much as we have, and these folks standing behind me. And the federal government is trying to pick up the pieces from the agency really being in disrepair for 4 years. They're getting it. They're gonna get where they need to be, I think. But for us, we're ahead of the curve in Florida, and I thank everyone for leaning in on that. It's a very, very critical issue for the state of Florida. We also are recommending for our state law enforcement pay raises for 4,700 state sworn law enforcement officers. That'd be 20% increase for entry level, 25% for veteran officers, and we really want to thank them for all they've done. So Florida, we don't just say we're law and order, we back it up with actions, we back it up with policies. And if we hadn't taken the actions and had the policies that we do, we wouldn't have had the results that we would have. So just like I tell these guys, I can sit here and do all this stuff as governor, I can sign bills. Ultimately, you guys are where the rubber meets the road, and so you deserve the credit for doing it. But it's also the flip side is true. These guys can be working as hard as they want. If they don't have support from state leadership or their local leadership, then you end up becoming a Seattle or a Chicago very quickly. So it's really been a team effort, and I'm excited at all the progress and look forward to more great work ahead. Now, our law enforcement officers are also uniquely positioned to assist people in their communities who are looking for help but need someone to point them in the right direction. Look, we've got some really bad people in our society, but we also have some people that are just really troubled. We have people that are addicted to drugs, that have had problems in their life, and that has led them to pursue criminal activity, but are people that need help more than anything. And law enforcement officers across the state encounter these types of folks who need assistance every single day. You have single parents, you have senior citizens, you have veterans, you have youth and foster care system, juvenile justice system, people with disabilities. Our law enforcement on the ground see our society, all the different permutations better than maybe any other segment of our society in terms of the professional realm. So they patrol our communities. They see folks who have needs, and not just folks that have gone wayward, just normal folks who maybe have fallen on hard times. They need food, they need clothing, they need employment, they need substance abuse, they need other resources. We have spearheaded, well, I should say the First Lady has spearheaded the Hope Florida program, which was not originally designed with law enforcement in mind. It was really focusing on child welfare, the Department of Children and Families. We had seen for many years the limits of what a bureaucracy can accomplish. We've also seen for many decades the pitfalls of what a culture of dependency on government assistance can mean for people's ultimate horizons. Getting people off dependency and on a pathway to self-sufficiency broadens their horizons. When they're trapped in a cycle of dependency, that really lowers their potential. And we've seen that really since the Great Society's War on Poverty in the 1960s. Now, these are not easy issues, but the First Lady really spearheaded a realization that in the state of Florida, and I think most places in the United States, but in the state of Florida, we have a lot of resources at our disposal. It's not all funneled through the government. Most of the stuff is not funded by tax dollars. Most of the best resources are not caught up in bureaucracies, but they're found in our houses of worship. They're found in our charities. They're found in a lot of our business community who wants to help people get up on their feet, and even individuals who volunteer their efforts to help others in need. And so through Hope Florida, they've been able to transform the child welfare system into don't try to just get as many people on programs for as long as possible as you can. Try to liberate folks in need from these programs by linking them to all these other great resources that are in our communities. And so since the First Lady launched this, I think it's not even 2 years that we've had this, there have been 30,000 Floridians that have gotten off welfare programs, and it's saved the state about $100 million. And so it's good for taxpayers, but then those folks who now have a stake, people in the community have invested in them, they have a pathway to self-sufficiency, they are going to do so much better having that pathway in front of them. So I think it's been an incredibly successful social reform. There's been other states that have made pilgrimages down to Florida to be able to talk with folks who are involved in this and trying to mimic that in other states across the country. Now, some of the states, quite frankly, are more left-leaning. They don't like the fact that Florida harnesses our places of worship and our religious communities and faith-based community. And I think that's them making a mistake. I think their hostility to faith institutions is not serving their constituents well. I can tell you, when we have folks in need, we have some of our churches and synagogues, they're the first one to answer the call, and they are there with folks through thick and thin. So to ignore the great impact that the faith community can have on people in need is to not arrive at the optimal policy. So Florida's doing it right, and I'm really proud of the success. But there's even more that you can do. So Hope Florida has expanded from the child welfare to other parts of state government, including elder affairs. Now we have the ability with law enforcement. They have the resource cards so they can quickly connect citizens in need on the Hope hotline and then be connected with the Hope Navigator. The Hope Navigators connect individuals in need with resources, set long-term goals, and develop a strategic plan to overcome barriers and achieve success. So to date, as I had mentioned, we had 30,000 Floridians have either completely eliminated or reduced their reliance on public assistance. That is out of 118,000 Floridians that have been referred to Hope Florida. Now, not all of them were on public assistance, obviously. And then the savings to taxpayers has been actually $108 million, so more than $100 million. And so today's announcement builds off this success. Hope Florida now officially can announce that we have a liaison station in the sheriff's offices in every one of Florida's 67 counties. These liaisons now serve as a dedicated person on staff who acts as a point of contact between the sheriff's office and Hope Florida, serves as a trained expert in Hope Florida, receives Hope Florida materials to distribute within their office, and trains others on the philosophy and functions of Hope Florida. It's going to help many more Floridians in need connect with those in Florida who can help. We are proud of the work that our law enforcement officers are doing as ambassadors of Hope Florida to equip, inform, and assist members of the public in connecting them with Hope Navigators. And I think this has the potential to be very, very positive, because if you talk to some of these guys, and as I have through the years, I mean, what I think most people in law enforcement will tell you is the problems that we have in criminal justice, there's just a subset of that is mental health problems. And so these folks, perhaps if there had been an intervention earlier, would not have ended up devolving into committing criminal acts. So this is a great pathway as these officers are identifying folks to be able to get them on their feet and get them on a more productive path. So we are delivering on the commitment that we've made from the first day I was governor to support our law enforcement community. I really do hope that as the legislature goes through the budget, that we will have strong support in the budget for the men and women in law enforcement. They've earned it, and our support is very much needed. So thanks for everybody that's been involved with this. We'll hear from Casey, then we'll hear from Sheriff Promell, and then we'll hear from Senator Jay Collins. So, Casey, floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I can't thank the sheriffs enough. To have cooperation from all 67 counties across the state of Florida is really special. But I think they understand the mission of what we're ultimately trying to do, right? When somebody is in need of help, do you get a check, government assistance, and that's where the story ends? Or can we help you on a pathway to economic self-sufficiency? Can we provide you a lifeline of hope? At the end of the day, we want to help people who are suffering, and they do not know where to turn. Can you imagine what it must be like for a single mom who's sitting there at the dining room table trying to figure out how she's going to keep the lights on, how she's going to be able to provide educational opportunities for her kids, how she's going to make sure that they have school supplies, how she can keep down a job, how she can make sure that they're doing their homework, and she's taken on this burden all by herself, and she doesn't know where to turn to get help. We have the solution. The solution is not just government. The solution is out there in the communities. It's always been there. But what we do now is when that mom either is coming into the government system, or what we do, we call them. We know you're on government assistance. We say to that single mom, hey, we see you're struggling. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because we want to help. And now we take you on a pathway. That pathway starts not with government, but with all of the nonprofits who have been out there in the community for years and years providing supports, but the two never knew that they were there. The single mom didn't know to go down the street to ask this nonprofit for this, that, or the other. We make a connection now. We also make a connection with our faith-based communities because they've been the biggest untapped resource as it pertains to help with government. We have 16.5 million people of faith across this state, 20,000 institutions. You think if they knew that mom was struggling and needed some help, and how cool would it be if they could show up at her front doorstep with a plate of lasagna to say, I heard you were going through some tough times. We got you. We can do that in the state of Florida because we've created the connections. This isn't about creating a program. It's about a philosophy. How does government operate? How do we truly help somebody out of a culture of dependency on a pathway to economic self-sufficiency, hope, and at the end of the day, happiness? If we as government have the opportunity to be able to provide happiness for somebody, we have an obligation, if they want to take that path, to do everything we can to support them. And I'm talking about a single mom because I have somebody in the back of my mind. Her name is Ginger. And you can go on X and you can see her story, and it's incredible. Because when you know what she was going through, she was sitting in her car, she didn't have a high school diploma, she didn't know what she was gonna do, she was working in a pool store, she was selling pool chemicals, she had 2 kids, and she was lost. We called her, and we said exactly what I told you before. We said, hey, Ginger, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And she said, nobody asked me that question. Nobody took an interest in that way to give me hope. And we went down a path. And do you know what that path included? A nonprofit that she didn't know was there that helped her with her utilities and helped her with her rent. And then we went from there. Workforce, educational opportunities through our colleges, vocational, all of this stuff. There are 600,000 jobs available in the state of Florida right now. There are programs through the thanks to the governor that provide the ability to get the skills to get those jobs, but it's all siloed. And again, I go back to that single mom who's sitting at the table. Is she supposed to go to Google and figure all this out? Like, how do I go? This video? We do it for her. We provide the path. Yeah, you want to be able to do this? This is your goal, to be a medical technician, which was her goal, Ginger. Said, we're going to help you map that out. And we did. We showed her how to get the skills. We made the connection. We helped guide her through the process. Now she's a licensed medical professional. She's a specialist. And when she tells her story, she'll do it with tears in her eyes. Not only because she knew she had it within her to live up to her God-given potential, but she looks to her kids, and she showed her children that the American dream is real, because it's always been there. Government, because of the 1960s, is now uniquely positioned because people who are in need come into government. So what do we do when they're there? It's not case management. It's utilizing the resources exterior of government to provide those connections and to help people know that you can succeed in this country. You can do it. We're just going to help you along the way. And for Ginger, because we called her, or if you want to call one number and talk to somebody, we're going to help you map it out. It is so hard to be able to figure out where to go because it's all siloed. Do I go to this nonprofit, and what do I say to them? Do I go to this faith-based community, and will they laugh at me if I walk in the front door? Clearly they wouldn't, but do I ask them for meals? Do I do this? Where do I turn? What we're doing is empowering the communities, what they have always been there to do. But somewhere along the way, they got separated. And now Hope Florida is a model not only for the state of Florida, not only provides hope for Floridians, it is a model for this nation. It's a model for other states who, he said, make a pilgrimage coming down here to Florida to see how can we legitimately help people in need? How can we make a difference in their lives? So I would say this program, it's not about me, it's not about the governor, it's about hope, because we're in the position to really legitimately help people succeed. And so you'll see us continue to double down on this because it's a righteous, worthy, good thing to do to help somebody who's struggling. And anybody out there who doesn't know where to go, doesn't know where to turn, you're afraid, you're scared, you're sitting there and you feel like you're alone, call 833-GET-HOPE. And you'll be able to find a pathway to be able to get ultimately up to your God-given potential and ultimately to be happy. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to the Gov.
Okay, Sheriff.
first off, I would like to thank the governor and the House and the cabinet for years of support for law enforcement. With them, with their help, we've been able to keep Florida a law and order state, and we thank you very much for that, sir. Again, I'd like to thank First Lady DeSantis on inviting the sheriffs to attend the event here at the Sheriff's Day at the Capitol. As president of the Florida Sheriff's Association, it's an honor to lead these great men and women you see here behind me. In recent years, Hope Florida program has worked to help so many in need, and it is great to announce that today we now have a specific point of contact in all 67 sheriff's offices that can work with Hope program navigators to assist those in need. It's about communities helping communities. As you heard, faith-based, nonprofits, businesses, individuals, civic associations. And we as sheriffs in our communities, we know a lot of these different organizations. We work with them day in and day out, and we can help connect these dots even more. And this all came about, of course, by women. We just recently had our first women law enforcement leaders a few weeks ago here at the Florida Sheriff's Association. And the First Lady came and attended and spoke to 41 women leaders from the sheriff's offices from around the state, and she spoke about the HOPE program. It was from her discussion and a question from attendees about how they could learn more and work better with the HOPE program that First Lady came up with the idea of having a specific point of contact in each one of our sheriff's offices. We were more than happy to assist, and today we now have a strong connection with our sheriff's offices and the HOPE program. As you can imagine, sheriffs have a pretty busy schedule, and from time to time issues arise that our staff need to be able to resolve very quickly. We are so pleased that we now find and identify even more ways to help families or individuals in need, and we don't need to grow the size of government. We can do it better with resource allocation and doing what we are announcing today, stronger partnerships between the state and local governments. Because, you know, today, law enforcement is very little of what we do. We're dealing with mental health. We're dealing with substance use. We're social workers. We're counselors. And this is going to be another tool in our toolbox to help Floridians statewide. So thank you, Governor, as well as First Lady, in taking the lead on this critical issue. Thank you, everybody, and God bless.
Jay?
Well, it looks like I get the back cleanup today, so I appreciate that. Always an honor to be here with the Governor, the First Lady, Sheriff. Thank you. Isn't leadership a pretty amazing thing? When you can speak to the Governor, the First Lady, and see instant results manifest this quickly, that's what leadership is about. Friends, life is a contact sport, and winning matters. And we do that in Florida. Your moral compass, what drives you, what matters to you as a state and as a community matters, and that is what drives us here in Florida. I want to approach this from a little bit different perspective. Now, many of you know me as a military guy, but I also grew up on commodity cheese and on the welfare program on the wrong side of the tracks. And I will tell you, it's a pretty hopeless place. It's hard pulling yourself, clawing yourself out of a space where nobody else from your family has gone before. I can tell you, you feel trapped. You don't know what you don't know. Getting information from the right people to you to solve a problem can change everything. I am here because people invested in me and taught me how to fish. I heard a wise man say that once, right? And I think that is what we need to keep focusing on when it comes to Hope Florida. You know, for those states that think that God is a part of the problem, I will tell you God is not the problem. God is the solution to the problem, and we have to have that more. And connecting people to our religion and connecting people to our community leaders in the church is how we solve that problem. Where the rubber meets the road is where Hope Florida does the most good. People don't know what they don't know. Our men and women in law enforcement do so much across our community, day in and day out. They are true community heroes. And from a budgetary standpoint, I can promise you, I fundamentally believe you deserve everything you need, the time, tools, training necessary to complete your mission, but ultimately complete your mission to go home to your families. Because what you're raising is the next generation of Floridians and Americans, and that matters. But what Hope Florida is just that. I love things that have the key word in the title. It is hope. Everybody deserves to be the best version of themselves, and I don't know about you, but I do not believe government is a solution to the problem. We need to marshal resources through Hope Florida, change the welfare system, and provide opportunity to those people who may not see it any other way. And I applaud the First Lady and the Governor for their leadership on this, and I'm incredibly grateful for everyone's support across the state. But to close this thing out, imagine where we're going to go as this thing continues to pick up steam and move forward. When we do that, we change welfare, we change our state, and we can change our nation. Thank you, and God bless you.
And I think the possibilities of this are not even limited to other states copying. Both the First Lady and I have briefed both the President and Elon Musk about, one, this is a way to produce better outcomes, but you could save a lot of money, too, when you're looking at how some of these federal programs operated, particularly in the veteran space. I mean, Jay can tell you, we've got some unbelievable veterans organizations, and that across the gamut. We know we have a problem, we've had a lot for many, many years on mental health for veterans. Honestly, some of these private groups, charitable groups, do better than the VA on that. Wouldn't it be great if someone shows up to the VA, instead of getting ground down into bureaucracy, you have a Hope-like portal there, and I'm sure Elon can build a much better one than we can, that you would be able to link these vets, like in the Tampa Bay, all these different charities that are there that really are matter. Businesses get invested in helping veterans. So I think this is something that you could definitely see really work well in certain aspects of the federal government. Then what you have is you have less pressure on the VA. There's probably going to end up being less money spent, but the veterans have much better outcomes if you're able to do it. You know, I remember we really spearheaded in Florida with some of our groups like Canines for Warriors, the whole service dog for veterans with post-traumatic stress. VA at the time, they wouldn't recognize that. They're doing drugs. They're just constantly prescribing drugs, and that does not work for many of the veterans. Now they've been more amenable to seeing this because it does have a track record of success. But we've got these service dog groups here. You don't even need to go with some of these with some of the drugs if you have some of these other options. So I hope that this is something. I know their phase one on the DOGE is really hoping, you know, to just cut the budget and cut the money, and obviously the federal government needs to do that. But I think you can operate some of these areas using this model that will save money and produce much better outcomes. Would also just like to say, you know, this is not something that's happened in recent years or that's happened in the past, but we do have the Florida Gators in the Final Four, and that's going to be a big deal for this weekend. Maybe not for a lot of people in this room who probably are more Florida, but look, we deal with it at home. I mean, we've got 3 young kids, and they basically spent their formative years. Actually, our youngest daughter wasn't even born until I was governor. And so, you know, they have, not through our direction, because I don't have a dog in the fight, but they have gravitated toward the Knowles, right? So they're big Knowles, which is, well, the thing is it's, you know, it's 5 minutes from our house, right? So you go watch the baseball, watch all this stuff. And I can tell you, I mean, you know, my son was probably the only Florida State fan in the country that was like super excited that they, in November, even though they had only had 1 win at the season, that they were playing Charleston Southern or whoever. He was like really hopped up. I'm like, a lot of these others aren't. So, but what's happened is they have taken that, which is fine, and we just said we're going to expose them to other things. So we actually went to the Florida-Miami game at the Swamp. We're like, want the kids to see the Swamp, whatever. Mason even wore a Tebow jersey. And then after the game, it's like, what do you think, buddy? I'm a Knoll. It's like, that's how he is. So he's like they're all 3, the girls and him, they're they've become true Knolls. So Casey and I are just trying to get them, listen, you guys are Floridians. You should be rooting for Florida, especially if they play Duke in the national championship. You can't root for Duke. So we'll see what happens. We're working that. It's sensitive, but I do wish the Gators well. They've had a remarkable run thus far. The SEC, I mean, you know, SEC was down in football relative to what they've been doing recently, but in basketball, that was pretty impressive run. So good luck to the Gators, and hopefully they'll bring back a national championship. Say it again. Oh, I mean, look, those are so overwhelmingly Republican districts that I think it's physically impossible for someone, as long as you put an R by your name, to not win. Now, look, I mean, Jimmy's a friend of mine. I mean, I know he's going to do, people like him. He's going to do really well. Some of these others may not as well. The point I've just made, though, in CD6 is what the political media is going to do if there's an underperformance. I don't think there can be a loss, but if there's an underperformance, which a lot of people are predicting, I think Trump won it by 30. I think I won it by like 35 or something, or 37. If there's an underperformance, they're going to say, see, it shows the voters are rejecting. It has nothing to do with that. This is a rejection of the specific candidate amongst some voters who either choose not to vote, maybe even vote third party. I don't know how many Republicans would actually cross over and vote for a lunatic Democrat, but I do think that it's just added to the mix of issues, but I think it's almost all local. Remember, he's not from that district. He lives like 150 miles away. And it's just different. So I would just caution people, regardless of the performance, if there is an underperformance, and maybe there won't be, who knows? But if there is, I think it's wrong. I mean, you can quibble with Trump endorsing or not, but that's a separate question from why are the voters reacting the way they do if there's an underperformance. And I think it's going to be more of a local reason. I think it's going to be more of a candidate-specific reason. I don't think if there's an underperformance that's a referendum on the president. I think the president was on the ballot. I think he would win by 30 again. So first of all, we're not going to let you try to smear a good program with this stuff on these things. And I know the House is feeding you guys stuff. We weren't born yesterday. We understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to kind of sully this. This is the nonprofit arm. It's a charitable arm. They're going to take care of the paperwork. But while you're worried about filing paperwork, we're worried about lifting Floridians up. We're worried about getting people on the path to self-sufficiency. We're worried about changing lives. We're not worried about trying to play phony gotcha games. So go back to the House Leadership Office, talk to their staff, let them feed you some more BS, try to recycle it, but nobody trusts you anymore. You don't have any credibility because you're always peddling the same BS. I don't think on the tourism, we heard when the president, was tussling a little bit with Canada, there was a whole thing about, the Canadians are going to boycott the state of Florida. Well, I can tell you this, Casey and I had our kids at Legoland in Polk County a couple weeks ago, and I'm getting stopped every 10 steps to take pictures, and 80% of the people were from Canada. So the Canadians are coming. We're going to continue to be a tourist hotspot. What I've heard from businesses is, there's some areas of Florida that are welcoming some of the stuff on Mexico because they felt they got left out of USMCA, some of our agriculture interests. We also have ports and a lot of other stuff. So I think that there's kind of a mix about how people respond. But I think once they know the rules of the road, I think that they'll adjust accordingly. But I am not worried about tourism. In fact, I'm seeing some of these Canadians. I was like, I thought you guys weren't coming here anymore. Oh, no, we're coming to Florida. Trust me, as someone that grew up in Dunedin, the spring training home of the Toronto Blue Jays, once February came, it was like half the license plates were Ontario license plates. So I think we're going to do really well with tourism. So we'll see kind of the national stuff, how that shakes out. But on tourism, I feel good that we're going to be strong. We had 142 million visitors that came to the state of Florida last year. That's an incredible number. I remember I was speaking to the Restaurant and Lodging Association. For like a decade, they were stuck at like 85 million visitors, and that was kind of the norm. And then really, I think since COVID, we shattered the records. And then as people fled to Florida during that, they're like, hey, we like it here. So they come more and more. So we've got a great stream of folks. We do have a lot of international visitors. But it does raise an issue about kind of, we're having, I'd like to see some property tax relief. There's some faction in the legislature that says, oh, no, do the sales tax. The reality is, the tourists pay a pretty good chunk of the sales tax for us. I don't want to reduce taxes on Canadian or Brazilian tourists. I'd rather them pay more and us pay less as Florida residents. And so we have the luxury of having a state tax system that can leverage the fact that we're a desirable location to further relieve burdens on Floridians. And if you think about the property tax situation, people's assessments are going up. So they're not raising the millage rate, but they are assessing your property higher and higher. The whole homestead is not enough to keep up with that. I mean, you still pay more, but then heaven forbid you got to sell your home and move somewhere else, then the basis is much higher. So people are getting pinched with that. We have an opportunity to do some relief this year, but more importantly, the 2026 ballot, we are going to have an opportunity to provide constitutional protection for homeowners. And this is something that would make this state boom like never before. It would be a lifeline to so many folks who are having to fork over that check, for property taxes. And, the thing of it philosophically is, do you own your home or not, right? I mean, like, if I buy a big screen TV, I put it on my wall, yeah, I got to pay sales tax, but I put it on my wall. I don't have to keep writing a check to the government, and then they can come seize it if I don't do that. But that's kind of where we are as a society on the property taxes. You buy land, you buy a home, even if it's free and clear of any encumbrances, you paid the mortgage, everything. At what point is it actually yours? And when you have these assessments coming in, they're basically saying, no, it's kind of yours as long as you pay your rent to the government. And that's not, I think, what people want in the free state of Florida. So there's going to be a huge discussion about that. I'm looking forward to engaging in that. I know we've had some great conversations, particularly with folks in the Florida Senate, and I think it's really, really good. Gary, let me do Gary, then go ahead. We don't believe, I understand that some people have raised it. My guys have looked at it. We will have an acting through April. We will appoint somebody in May that will be the full-time official. And I am aware of those issues, but we don't actually agree that those are ultimately, and just think about it though. How could that possibly be? I mean, like, this is a planned resignation, right? But sometimes tragedy happens. What you would say that you have to do? No, you got to vet people. Some people are expressing interest. We're vetting. We're making sure that these are folks that are going to have a really strong agenda when they go in. And so, I've said publicly, if people are interested, you'll let us know if you got the qualifications and you're going to support strong policies. But the reality is we've got to go through that process. And so we are doing that, and we will have somebody probably no later than the middle of May. Yes, one more. So I can't say specifically between both. I know we've had great discussions with Senator Burton. I do believe at least the Senate product is going to answer the concerns, and I do anticipate that we're going to have a product on hemp that I'll be able to sign into law. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.